Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 133 of Total Retail Talks. Listen in as Joe Keenan, executive editor of Total Retail, sits down with Aaron Sanandres, CEO and co-founder of UNTUCKit, and Keith Sherry, COO of SATO, the RFID solution. Listen in as they talk about experiential retail and the use of RFID for inventory management in store. All recorded live at this year's NRF Big Show in New York City. And now, on to the show.
Hi, I'm Joe Keenan of Total Retail. I am here at the National Retail Federation Big Show in New York. I am joined by Aaron Sanandres, who is the CEO and co-founder of UNTUCKit, and as well as Keith Sherry, who is the COO of SATO. We're going to talk a little bit about UNTUCKit and its use of a RFID solution from SATO. So thanks for joining me, guys.
Joe, thanks for having us on.
Thanks, Joe. So we'll start with you, Aaron. Can you just tell us a little bit about UNTUCKit for those in our audience that may not be familiar with the brand?
Sure. So UNTUCKit is a casual apparel brand launched in 2011, really to solve a problem at the time in men's fashion, which was finding casual shirts that look good untucked. Mm-hmm. Sounds like a simple problem, but it's actually fairly pervasive. And so we were born out of the idea that we could make a shirt that is meant to be worn untucked, that bridges that fine line between what a dress shirt you might expect from a dress shirt and the comfort you might expect from a casual shirt.
Yeah. And company was born, you started online and then now have expanded into brick and mortar, correct?
We did. So we launched online. We opened our first retail store. So online in 2011, our first retail store opened in September 2015. But our real retail expansion was 2017. So we came into 2017 with 5 stores, and we ended 2017 with 25 stores.
Which is a story in itself. Kind of the, that's great. First off, and kind of counter to what was happening, with some of the other retail store, retail brands this year with some of their store counts. But
absolutely.
So let's talk then kind of in store a little bit about, why having an RFID solution. How do you, is important to UNTUCKit and kind of the different ways that you plan to use that technology?
Okay, so technology stack in store is extremely important. Online, it's pretty much part of the online infrastructure. You have your web platform, you have data from, you have your other stacks and technical stacks that you put on top of that. You get a lot of data from it. The concern was, as we were moving to stores, we didn't want to lose our in-store customer and lose the data and the analytics around our in-store customer. And so RFID is one very important component of that technical stack that we look for in stores. It allows us to do really 3 things. Well, they're all interconnected, but first and foremost, it's an inventory management system. That's what, at least 5 years ago, was probably best known for. But it allows us to do more than that. It allows us to improve a tremendous amount of worker productivity and efficiency. It allows us to better place product in front of the customer, since we know what it is that they're coming to shop for. And ultimately, it provides for a better customer experience. A lot of our customers start online and move into store, so the RFID is kind of one component that makes that as seamless of a process as possible.
Yeah, I want to kind of follow up on that last point you made about the customer behavior that you saw. With the kind of expansion of the brick and mortar, did you find that you were having a lot of customers coming into the store saying, "Hey, I looked at this online. I have a couple ideas in mind of what I want to try on," and then that's why they're coming in store?
It was. So our store strategy was first and foremost to prime the market with a sufficient amount of marketing, so that when people saw UNTUCKit, they had at least a warm-nosed relationship with the brand. They knew what we were, as opposed to, this is just a random store that I'm going to walk into and see if I'm interested. And so what we found was about half the people that walked into our store knew about the brand and never shopped. Mm-hmm. About a quarter of the people had already been customers. They bought online and now are looking to explore the store. And then a quarter were just literal random captures that walked in, never heard of us, and thought they'd check it out. Because, again, one of the main things we have on all of our stores and storefronts is UNTUCKit shirts designed to be worn untucked. So there's that communication you have with somebody who may not know who you are or what you stand for, but if they read those words, you have kind of an immediate primal connection with a problem that hopefully we can help solve.
Your customers, I would imagine, typically men, and
Interesting question. So the predominant shirt sold is the men's casual button-down shirt. 40% of our customers are women, though. And so that's why, if you think about product expansion just beyond the classic button-down, it has all been driven by customer demand. So we went into T-shirts and Henleys and polos because our customers were asking for it. And women's was because 40% of our customer base were women that were asking us for a shirt for them that used similar fabric, similar construction. And so we launched our women's line in the spring of last year. And then through our connection and just dialogue with our women customers and some of our men customers, we launched our kids line in the fall this year. Again, I've said before that our customer demographic is broad. It's pretty democratic. We've got 22-year-old to 75-year-olds, and it blends not completely evenly across those cohorts, but we have such a wide range of cohorts that they are either having kids, they have kids, or they have grandchildren. And so a kids line made perfect sense for us and kind of, again, solve the answer the question that we're
the whole family. You get the
that's the idea.
Right.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about you mentioned, and I think the news came out today, the press release that you're working with SATO on this RFID solution. So what about that? Their particular technology made you willing to test a pilot program here?
So I think there were a couple of things, and obviously Keith's got a great perspective on this, but the one thing was it took RFID and it allowed us to look forward 1, 2, 3 years. So we're using RFID right now for our changing rooms to make sure we understand what percentage of mediums go in versus are being purchased. Is there a disconnect between the way our store associates are sizing up the customer as they walk in with in regard to what that customer ultimately buys, and that goes to customer experience. But then there's the whole changing room ability to do. You have a term for it, but in changing, you can be in the changing room. They've got the technology spread where I can choose to almost like I'm shopping online, add to cart, add to cart, add to cart, and the store associate that's helping them brings it all to their kind of handheld. And so just that ability to look, that might not be what we launch with, but that will definitely be our second step and third step. And so SATO's looked a few years out for us, and we think about how we add these technical stacks to our portfolio, make sure we can digest it first. That's the biggest thing right now. There's so much data. Making sure you've got somebody in-house that's doing something with it to action, because as I said, data's not an answer at all. Data gives you the inputs to get to an answer.
It's the tool.
It's the tool, but making sure you have somebody. So we need to digest what the RFID, this is a whole new world for us. I mean, the ability to do inventory, in-store inventory in under an hour versus a whole day just opens 24 hours worth of time for the 3 folks in our stores that would be doing that. So I think it's exciting, and there's growth, and we can lean into it.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect segue into the future and things that we can do with that fundamental platform. But just for a minute, I think we just should look at UNTUCKit as an organization, somebody that's come from online, moved into the, as you said earlier, actually, Joe, in terms of the bricks and mortar. But Aaron's very modest. He's a super smart guy and drives this from a business perspective. He's looking at how do I grow this, and looking at it from analytical perspective. Now, as and when and how he introduces new stores is driven by the information that he's gathering from his customers today and the types of inventory that's coming through. So, as I said, without that level of detail, I think it's really hard to make those smart decisions as to where to go next. And really, that's what we're seeing, this exciting transition, I think, in retail as people go from online really to in the store. And I think there's a lot that can be learned from some of the big retailers about, okay, how do we get really smart about retailing going forward?
Yeah, merging kind of the two worlds, bringing the online world into the store as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, Aaron alluded to it. There are three areas that we touch on with regard to convergence of technology. First of all, of course, you've got to understand the inventory that's going on within the store itself. And RFID plays beautifully to actually getting control of that. Then how you see movement within the store and what we're doing really for UNTUCKit there for in and out of the fitting room. But then you build on that and look at how you can use that to leverage the consumer engagement activity that Aaron was alluding to. And how do you then bring in the sales associate? So empowering the sales associate to make the store more efficient within there. So those three areas, I think, are key. And the integration, as you rightly said, bridging the gap between online and offline is exactly where it's going. And as I say, if you really look at what UNTUCKit are doing, it's extremely exciting, just from a pure smarts perspective.
Yeah. So that's a good lead in. What are some of the benefits that you hope to realize? You talked a little bit about the inventory piece, and potentially, I would imagine maybe a cost savings tool there, and then customer experience, having the right inventory in the right stores and available. So can you talk about what you really targeted as kind of the business benefits here?
Yeah, look, it's worth repeating because I think they're that powerful. One is inventory management. That plays into things like worker productivity. If they can do inventory turns in an hour for spending a full day, and we have 3 people doing that helps. It helps with worker productivity with respect to sizing up and knowing how they should be fitting, or if their size that they're giving the customer doesn't translate to the size the customer's buying, ask the question why. Should I be asking different questions as the customer comes in for me to better be able to give him the one shirt that's going to fit him the first time or her the first time? Because conversion rates go down. We know this if someone has to try on a repeat shirt. Either I just don't have the time, or I don't like the fact that I don't feel good in the first shirt that I put on. You want this person to feel phenomenal because the shirt looks great on them. So it adds an amount of customer experience enhancement that we don't have right now, and it all blends in ultimately the customer experience between making sure we have not only the inventory in store that individual may have seen online and now has traveled to the store to purchase, and we've got a fair amount of confidence that it's going to be there, to making sure he's got the right inventory stack. If this is LA and we find out that LA people are picking up plaids more often, that's just what they're looking at, and they're ignoring the ginghams, they're not touching the ginghams, well, we got to free up floor space, and maybe we don't replace it with more plaid, maybe we replace it with our kids line or something else that may not have a prevalent role in a particular store. So ultimately it's all three, but it feeds into 100% customer experience. It's not new, right? It's not innovative, but there's certainly innovative ways and new ways to deal with it.
Kind of optimize the experience on a store level, on an individual store level is kind of where you're taking it. So, and then my final question, guys, is, and I'll probably start with you, Aaron, with this, but Keith, I'd probably be interested in your perspective, kind of, across your client base, your retail client base. What advice would you have for other retailers that are looking to integrate a new technology into their business, such as the RFID solution you've recently rolled out?
So with any technical implementation, I think you have to ask yourself, why do you want it and why do you need it? There's a lot of technology out there that, frankly, most companies probably wouldn't be able to digest, especially companies our size, larger companies perhaps. And the second thing, absolutely, is what are you going to do with that information? The last thing you want to do is just build data and data troves for the sake of building data troves. You want to make sure that you've got somebody on staff that's looking at this information, because the data is great, it's organized, it's left, though, for you to take and disseminate, digest, and make decisions from.
Keith, do you have any thoughts on?
I think Aaron covered it off beautifully, actually. I think one of the things I'd say from a retailer's perspective that we're not seeing, and we are seeing with UNTUCKit, is they understand the need to bridge the gap between the physical and the digital. And RFID plays to that, and some people call it AI, artificial intelligence. Our role is an enabler to Aaron's company to ensure that they can grow at the rate that they are continuing to grow, and us for providing machine learning, analytics, and to Aaron's last point, at the moment they've got capability where they're using human intervention to interpret the data. Our job is going to be moving that more and more towards automation and giving them outcomes that they can actually carry out very specific directives on. So, wonderful future. I'm excited to be working with such an innovative, creative, and high-growth organization. And I'll reiterate, there's a super smart guy who's clearly going to go take this company a long, long way.
Yeah, and they're actually you kind of had another question pop in my head in relation to your answer. How's your business structured kind of in terms of a hiring with all of this? You mentioned the value, and not only you don't just want to collect data for the sake of collecting data. You need to be able to interpret, analyze, and then take action on it. Has that become an even more pressing need for a company like yours, the hiring data scientists and these engineers?
Oh, absolutely. I always feel like I'm at least 6 months behind on my hiring, and we're a company that started with fairly modest means. We raised $150,000, friends and family. We had no institutional raise until June. And so part of that's our DNA. We just run a very lean ship. But as we bring more data in every single day, the need for data scientists, which we've started plugging into, the need for data visualization, through companies like Domo, are just exponentially more important. Data grows exponential, so does the need to do something with.
Yeah, great. Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank Aaron Sanandres of UNTUCKit and also Keith Sherry of SATO for joining me today here at the NRF and talking to us a little bit about their businesses.
Thanks,
Joe.
Guys. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this episode, be sure to visit our podcast channel page at www.mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Stitcher, but please remember to subscribe to our podcast channel page as well. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.